So understanding the whole book, we're at part 28, understanding the two temple members, a continuation of last week. We're going to go into a little bit more clarity this week. All right, so of course, we know the rules. Please keep your mic muted except when asking or answering a question. Use the mic to speak. There's a feature in the room where you can raise your hand if you choose to, because it just goes. Anyway, you can have a question. All questions must be on the topic. You have 60 seconds to ask or answer a question. If you pass your 60-second window, we got some timers in here. Your mic will be muted for you. These rules are due to time and the recordings of the lessons. These are live teachings and must give the Moreh enough time to complete the lesson. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I don't have too many questions, I don't think, unless we'll see how the Ruach leads here. So Matthew Lamadyahu, chapter 21, verse 42, it says, Yahuah said unto them, have you never read in the Ketubim or the scriptures, the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone? This was Yahuah's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore, I tell you, the kingdom of Allah will be taken away from you and given to a people or a nation producing its fruits. Now, some people look at that and says, hey, he's taking it from, in King James, he's taking it from a nation and giving it to another nation. In reality is, what's your thoughts on that?
What nation you think
he says, I'm taking it away from you, right? And he's talking to the people, and he says, and giving it to a nation producing its fruit. Has anyone ever read this before? Okay, all right. Oh, so you read it plenty of times and just glossed right on over that part.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know who he is in me. Okay, I got it. All right. All right, so keep that part in mind, and we'll go to the answer here first, where it says, but you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a Kodesh nation or people, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. So in 1 Peter 2:9, this chosen generation, royal priesthood, a Kodesh people or nation, who is that?
Israel.
Okay. So everyone understands now, this is a Israel or believing Israel.
Believing Israel.
The problem is they were looking at the word ethnos, right? Ethnos. Anyone ever heard of the word ethnos? We get the word ethnos from, ethnos.
Ethnic.
Ethnicity, blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. So keep that in mind. We'll talk more about it in the future here. Verse 44 says, and the one who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces, and when it falls on anyone, it shall crush him. All right, so Targum's Isaiah 53, starting at verse 1. It says, who has believed this message of ours? And so to whom has the strength of the mighty arm of Yahuah been revealed in this way? But the righteous will become great before him. Behold, like sprouts that produce fruit. Now, the whole point here is what I want you to get at is this is going to be a nation that's producing fruit. Everyone agrees, right? It's a nation that's producing fruit. All right. So he's going to give this to a nation or a people, technically, that's going to start producing fruit. But you got to know what the fruit is, right? You can't say, I'm the one producing, I don't have to do this, I don't have to do that. Well, what's the fruit? All right. So anyway, keep that in mind. So it says, produce fruit, 53:2. It says, and like a tree that sends forth its roots by rivers of water, so the generations of the Kodesh ones will increase in the land that is in need of him. His appearance is not a common appearance, and his terror is not ordinary terror. And his splendor will be the splendor of set apartness, for all who see him will perceive him. Now, again, this is a Targum's version, not the Masoretic version. Okay, Masoretic text version, one you typically read. All right, so far, is everyone tracking so far? So right now we know that he's going to, this kingdom will be given and taken away and given to a people that's going to be producing fruit. But we got to know what the fruit is, and we're judged by our fruit, right? All right. Then we went to Peter just to say, well, we know that it can't be talking about, like, say, another nation, right? So whoever has this fruit that he's giving this to is the one that's supposed to be producing this good fruit. Then we went over to the Targums, Isaiah, and it further shares with us about this appearance of somebody. But my point of it is he's going to show us how to produce fruit. So this, and we believe that this is the Mashiach showing us how to produce fruit, right? So no guessing or anything. All right, great. All right, so let me lay this thing down for a little bit. And let me just put this up here for a little bit. All right. So we keep going. Verse 4 says, then he will entreat for our sickness, and our iniquities will be forgiven on account of him. Though we are reckoned and beaten and afflicted with blows from before Yahuah, but he will rebuild the temple. Who is he? Whoever this person is so far is going to rebuild the temple that was defiled by our sins, handed over by our iniquity. Now, you ask yourself a question now, who this he is, which we'll define in a minute, will rebuild the temple that was defiled by our sins. Okay? What temple is he talking about? Is everybody else at?
The temple within us. The temple within us.
Oh, okay. I'm glad someone came in the room. All right. The temple within ourselves. This is handed over by our iniquities. And by his teaching, peace will increase upon us. So you now starting to see something, right? Upon us. And when we follow his words, our sins will be forgiven us. Whoever he is.
Whoever he is.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Verse 8. Our suffering and retribution, he will bring our exiles near. Who will be able to tell of the miracle that will be done for us in his day? So somebody got to do this. There has to be some recording somewhere. All right. For he will remove the rule of the nations from the land of Yashral or Israel or Israel. Sins that my people have sinned, he will put on them. 10. He says, but from before Yahuah, it was pleasing to refine and to purify the remnant of his people, so that he could cleanse their life from sins. They will see the kingdom of their Mashiach. Okay. They will increase sons and daughters. They will prolong their days. And those who do the Torah of Yahuah will succeed by his favor. Okay. So according to Targums, right, if we believe this is the Mashiach as it says, and he's telling us, hey, we will have to keep the Torah. If something's different, you got to question, you got to ask some questions. Verse 11 says, he will deliver this life from the servitude of the nations. They will see the recompense of their enemies. They will be satiated from the plunder of their kings. It says, by his wisdom, he will justify the righteous, to subject many to the Torah. And he will entreat for their sins. Okay, so again, you're still seeing that Isaiah 53, according to what they understood in the first century, is the Torah, the instructions, commonly called the laws. We're not going anywhere. Okay, now we're not talking about what happened after a certain time. Verse 12, then I will divide the plunder of many nations from him, and will divide the spoil, the possessions of strong fortified cities, because he handed his life over to the death. Mm-hmm. And he subjected the rebels to the Torah. And he will entreat for many sins, and to the rebels it will be forgiven on account of him. Okay, everyone's with me so far? All right, so I want you to keep in mind is producing this fruit. This fruit, and it has to deal with someone helping you produce this fruit. All right. You got a question? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right. So I'll go next. All right. Zechariah 8:1 says, and the word of Yahuah of hosts, or Yahuah Sabaoth, came saying, thus says Yahuah of hosts, I am jealous for Zion with great jealousy, and I am jealous for her with great wrath. Thus saith Yahuah, I have returned to Zion and will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem shall be called the faithful city, and the mountain of Yahuah Sabaoth, the Chodesh mountain. Okay, Targums of 8:3 says, thus has Yahuah said, I will return to Zion, and I will make my presence dwell within Jerusalem, and Jerusalem shall be called the city of truth, and the mountain of the temple of Yahuah, the Chodesh mountain. So one says he's going to return, the other part says it'll be his presence. Okay, so keep that in mind. Verse 7 says, thus saith Yahuah Sabaoth, behold, I will save my people from the east country and from the west country, and I will bring them to dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and they shall be my people, and I will be their Elohim in faithfulness and in righteousness. Thus saith Yahuah Sabaoth, let your hand be strong. You who is these days have been hearing these words from the mouth of the prophets who were present on the day that the foundation of the house of Yahuah Sabaoth was laid, that the temple might be built. Okay, verse 11 says, but now I will not deal with the remnant of this people as in the former days, declareth Yahuah Sabaoth. For there shall be a sowing of peace. The vine shall give its fruit, and the ground shall give its produce, and the heavens shall give their due. And I will cause a remnant of people to inherit all of these. Okay, so there's going to be a connection that we're going to see, that the temple is going to mirror the spiritual temple. You're going to see fruit, spiritual fruit, coming with natural fruit. You're going to start to see everything is starting to come together when Yah comes. Right now, it's not the same. You see what I mean? So does everyone understand a little bit so far? Okay. Keep going here. So 20 says, thus saith Yahuah Sabaoth, peoples shall yet come, even the inhabitants of many cities. The inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go at once to entreat the favor of Yahuah and to seek Yahuah Sabaoth. I myself am going. Many people and strong nations shall come to seek Yahuah Sabaoth and Jerusalem and to entreat the favor of Yahuah. So there's a lot going on in Jerusalem. All right. And a lot of nations, as we read, later on in Zechariah 14 about what's going to take place, and if they don't come on the Feast of Tabernacles, and everyone. All right. So, and then of course we read Isaiah a couple of weeks ago, where it talks about that out of Zion is going to come the Torah. Or technically in Jerusalem is going to come the Torah. Everyone's familiar with all of this, right? All right. Thus saith, verse 23, thus saith Yahuah Sabaoth, in those days 10 men from the nations of every tongue shall take hold of the robes of a Yehuda or Yahudim, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that Elohim is with you. All right, so once they're in there now, they're gonna take hold of 10 Yahudim, because they know that. Why would they want to do that?
The blessings and favor of Yahuah is upon them.
Okay, and they know that Yahuwah is with them, right? But the thing we read in, let's say Romans, I think it was maybe chapter 1, talking about what advantage do they have? It's a chief in every way, because they were given the oracles of Elohim. You also read in John, the salvation is of the Yahudim, right? All right. Targum says in 9:1, it says, the burden of the word of Yahuwah is against the land of the south, and what's that word? Damasek, which is Damascus, right? Damasek, or Sek, technically, shall return to be a part of the land of the house of his presence, right? For before Yahuah, the works of mankind are revealed. He has been pleased with all the tribes of Yisrael or Yisrael. 2 says, and also Hamath, right, or Hamath in the King James, shall return to be a part of the land of his presence, Sor or Tyre, even Sidon, which is Sidon in the King James, though she has grown very strong. Now, where these places are, this is an old map, and this is a map that I blew up so we can see where some of these places are. All right, so I put some arrows on the places here, but you can see this. Sidon is here, Tyre is here. I put on here on the older maps here. And then you see where Damascus is, right underneath where it says Syria. And then when you go up, Hamath is up top, is up higher. So it's off this map here. So the question then becomes, has this been fulfilled? Because this right here saying they're going to return, it's going to be back to the land of Israel as a whole. Israel is bigger than that one little piece that you see on today's modern maps. So this here, as you see in the old map here, all of this used to be Israel. Well, the whole portion of this used to be Israel here. And then, of course, down here in the Negev, which would be where Yehudah was, all the way up to here where you'll see the Jerusalem. But anyway, these are some old maps. And I just want us to see that when these things happen, because everyone's trying to figure out, millions of people are going to fit in that one little spot in Israel? No. It's going to be much bigger than that. Okay? All right, keep that in mind. And maybe in the future, we'll talk about this other part. All right, so we'll keep going. All right, so the tabernacle not made with hands. Remember, we talked about this last week. I want to kind of go into a little bit more. So Mark 14:58, which you read before or last week, we heard him say, I will destroy this temple that is made with hands, and within 3 days I will build another made without hands. 2 Corinthians 5:1 says, for we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of Yahuah, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. What does that mean? Verse 1 here says, for we know that if our earthly house, that is the house that we have, our body, our flesh, right, so to speak, is the earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved. So if it goes back, okay, we have a building of Yahuah and a house not made with hands. What's not made with hands is this other vessel that the spirit that's within us is going to dwell in. Is everyone with me so far? Okay. Then it talks about it's eternal in the heavens. So you got to see this link between this new body and this eternal tabernacle and everything's going to come down. Somehow they got to fit, right? So we can't go in there in the way that we are now, right? We'll defile it, so to speak. All right, so we'll see that a little bit more of that in a minute. Hebrews 9:11 says, but Mashiach, being come in higher priest of good things to come by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands. So he's the pattern of how this tabernacle is going to look. Okay, so the way that that's going to look is the way that this vessel is going to look when this time comes. Not made with hands, that it's to say, not of this building. Okay, man can't say, I made you or a woman. Okay, all right, keep that in mind. I want to keep it clean. I'm going to take you out. All right. 24 says, for Mashiach is not entered into the Chodesh place made with hands. Which one was made with hands? The tabernacle here on this earth, right? So he's not talking about that one. He said, which are the figures of the true. We mean figures of the true. Remember, all that was made down here was a pattern of something, right? He says, but into Shamayim, or heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of Yahuah for us. All right, I'll skip that one there since it's working. So Hebrews 8:4-5 says, now if there were on earth, he would not be a priest at all, since there are priests who offer gifts according to the law. So people get that confused, like he was here, he was a priest on this earth. No, that's not what he come to do. Then he says, they serve a copy and a shadow of the heavenly things. For when Mashiach was about to erect the tent, he was instructed by law, saying, see that you make everything according to the pattern that was shown you on the mountain. So Moshe or Moses makes this pattern that's in the heavens, he makes it on earth. And it's for those that are in this earthly vessel to learn about this heavenly tabernacle. Is everyone with me so far? Because ultimately, we're going to mirror that tabernacle. And when we all come together, we should be able to operate inside of his tabernacle, right? Easy to get so far, right? All right. Acts 7:48. For now, we read last week, said, howbeit that the Most High dwells not in the temple made with hands. What temple is that again? The earthly temple. He's talking about the one that was destroyed. He said, I'm not in that, okay? He says, as saying the prophet, heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. What house will you build me, saith Yahuah, or what is the place of my rest? So we're going to read a little bit later that this temple he's referring to is going to be a little bit different on this greater scale. When his come down, the one that he does dwell in is going to come down, right? And then this whole earth is going to be filled with his presence. That's going to be on a bigger scale. So we had this little small glimpse of how it will be on a bigger scale. Okay? All right. And I said, and the Brit Hadashah repeatedly refers to the new end time temple as not made with hands. So we went over that last week. So we'll keep going. All right. So in the year that King Uzziyahu died, I saw also Yahuah sitting upon a throne high and lifted up, and his train, it filled the temple. What temple did it fill? The earthly? The earthly? Oh, okay. And then it says, and about it stood a seraphim, each one having 6 wings. With twain or 2 he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Chodesh, 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 Yahuah Sebaot. The whole earth is full of his chabod, or his esteem. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and his house was filled with smoke. Whose house? Yahuah's house. So this is a different house that's going to be, mind you, this is going to come down one day. So then said I, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. Is that us?
That's me.
Do we dwell in some, is y'all lips unclean? Talk to me. Y'all don't want to tell the truth? I'm praying every day. Okay, I got you. All right. For my eyes. Yeah. Some people don't want to admit how dirty they are. I understand. That's fine. Hey, listen, I'm clean. Got it. I understand. I get it. All right. For my eyes have seen the King, Yahuah Sebaot. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongues from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth and said, lo, this has touched your lips, and your iniquities is taken away, and your sin purged. You can imagine this altar. So I started to do I was thinking about maybe doing a parallel between that altar and that altar in Revelations, where saints were crying out, and you got to see how maybe all this come together. But yeah, one day, maybe 2022. All right. So where is this temple? I gave you 2 examples. Yahuah is in his Kodesh temple. That's where he's at. Yahuah's throne is in the heavens, right? It's in Shamayim. His eyes behold, his eyelids try the children of men. And Habakkuk says, but Yahuah is in his Kodesh temple. Let all the earth keep silent before him. So again, we know where his temple is. There was a pattern made on this earth, a little small pattern of what's to come. And he wanted to see how we would function in this little pattern, right? And then ultimately, he starts making this pattern between that and the Garden of Eden, which we'll talk about later on. It starts to grow, okay? Just like, Maybe I'll talk about it next week. When you think about the language, how they were before the Tower of Babel, they were all one, right? But they were one in a bad way. And then when he restores the language, he's restoring it back to somehow there's a connection there, and we'll see how that works maybe in the future. All right, we'll keep going. All right, so I know that this is between the 1st and 3rd century CE, Oldies of Solomon. So I figure I'll use it since it's within the context here. It says, for I should not have known how to love Yahuah if he had not continually loved me. I would not have known how, unless he has a continuous love for us, but I would not have known how love is except he showed us continually how he loves us. Unconditional, right? Or is it conditional? Okay. So who is able to distinguish love except him who is loved? I love the beloved, and I myself love him. And where his rest is, there also I. And I shall be no foreigner, because there is no jealousy with Yahuah Elyon and merciful. I have been united to him because the lover has found the beloved. Because I love him, that is the Son, I shall become a son.
Who you love?
Okay?
Who you love?
The Son, and I shall become a son. All right? And if you sisters feel left out, you know, that word is also for children too. It's the same word. All right. But I'm only going by what was written. So I'm sorry, I can't change anything there. All right. Indeed, he who is joined to him, who is immortal, truly will be immortal. And he who delights in the life will become living. This is the spirit of Yahuah, which is not false, which teaches the sons of the men to know his ways. Be wise and understand and vigilant. Hallelujah. Now, no man can pervert your Kodesh place. Okay, oh my Eloah. Nor can he change it and put it in another place. It can't happen, right? Because no power over it, for your sanctuary, you designed before you made special places. It was already done before he made the earth and put certain places on the earth to be set apart. He says, the ancient one shall not be perverted by those which are inferior to it. You have given your heart, O Yahuah, to your faithful ones. So again, we can't pervert it. We can't do anything. So somehow we got to change, right? So he's trying to see our change now. And then ultimately there's going to be a bigger change. Okay. Preparing for the new creation. Okay, so Elohim will fill every part of his creation with his presence. Okay, the Kodesh Elohim's presence could not dwell fully in the old creation because it was in a sin-tainted and idolatrous world. Yahuah will make the earth his footstool. We read this last week. Isaiah 66:1 says, thus saith Yahuah, heaven is my throne, the earth is my footstool, where the house that you have built unto me, where is my place of rest? For all those things have my hand made, and all those things have been, says Yahuah, but this to man will I look, even to him that is poor and of the contrite spirit trembles at my word. So we went over this before. So I put, when Yahuah fully redeems the world and recreates it, he will dwell in it in a fuller way than before. You're going to see he created the whole earth to be inhabited, as it says in Yeshayahu Isaiah. So it's about this whole world, but sometimes we're kind of focusing on this one little spot and all the world that he made. I'm going to this one little place, and we all got to get there. Now, the question becomes is that place there that he set for us for who? Okay, for Israel, and it's going to be for some Gentiles that sojourns, right? But ultimately, then all the rest of the places where the nations are, if they don't come, there will be no rain in their area. So clearly, there's going to be some blessings for them that come year to year for the Feast of Tabernacle. Okay, is everyone good so far? All right. Romans 8:19 says, "For the earnest expectation of the creatures or creation waits for the manifestation of the sons of Eloah. For the creature or creation was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who has subjected in hope. Because the creature or the creation itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the esteemed liberty of the children of Eloah." Verse 22 says, "For we know that the whole creation groans and travails and pains together until now." The whole creation. "And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Spirit." Remember, we have just the first fruit of the Spirit. Okay, "even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, to wit, redemption of our bodies." Okay, because once that body changes, you get the fullness of who he is. Now you can dwell in his presence. Okay, all right. Any questions so far? Okay. All right, so second Ezra, also called 4 Ezra, between the first and third century, says, "And when these things come to pass, and the signs occur which I showed you before, then my son will be revealed, whom you saw as a man coming up from the sea." What do you mean, come up from the sea? You read it right.
Speak Moreh. Is he talking about in reference when he was baptized and he was coming up out of the water?
No, but that was a good guess.
Ta-da.
Okay, he says, "And when all nations hear his voice, every man shall leave his own land and the warfare that they have against one another. And an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together, as you saw, desiring to come and conquer him."
Nation's gonna gather to fight.
They ready to fight. Who do you think you are?
Take my land.
Taking my land, my people. I done made all kinds of money. I got a social security and card, and I was making money off you guys offshore. All right. Anyway, he's verse 35. He says, "But he will stand on the top of Mount Zion." And Zion, or what's the word for Zion?
Zion.
Okay. "And Zion will come and be made manifest to all people, prepared and built as you saw the mountain carved out without hands." So this Zion is going to be a little bit different. Okay, keep that in mind. "And he, my son, will reprove the assembled nations for their wickedness." This was symbolized by the storm. So you got to read it all the way above to learn all the other things about this vision that he has. He said, "I said, O sovereign Adonai, explain this to me. Why did I see the man coming up from the heart of the sea?" And he said to me, "Just as one can explore or know, or is it just as no one, Slika, can explore or know what is in the depths of the sea, so no one on earth can see my son or those who are with him, except in the time of his day. This is the interpretation of the dream which you saw, and you alone have been enlightened about this, because you have forsaken your own ways." I mean, that's a really good thing to do. If you forsaken your own ways and have applied yourself to mine and have searched out my Torah, my instruction. So you're going to have to start learning how to get rid of your own stuff, right? Do I have to sacrifice some stuff for his stuff? Absolutely, right? We have to do that. Okay. The keys to the kingdom. Matthew 19:16 says, "And I will give unto you the keys of the kingdom of Shamayim, or heaven, and whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Pause. What does that mean to you? You don't know? You said you're not. You want to know? Okay. I called her. She was outside, but I called her. I remember what she said. Okay. All right. So I want you to think about what's happening here. Okay. I will give them the keys, right? So first I want you to think of this. This will be the duties of the priest. What were the priests doing on earth? Forgiving sins. And everyone remember this, right? So somehow this one here is going to do something a little stronger. Just keep this in mind. Isaiah 22, verse 20 says, and it shall come to pass in that day that I will call my servant. And who is now this servant here, his name is Eliakim, okay, which means my El has set up. Okay, the son of or Ben Kilkiyahu. My portion is Yah or Yahu. Okay, so keep that in mind. And it says, and I will clothe him with your robe and strengthen him with your girdle or your sash, which we'll read in the Targums in just a minute. And I will commit your government into his hand, and he shall be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the house of Yehudah. And the key of the house of David will I lay upon his shoulder. So he shall open and none shall shut, and he shall shut and none shall open. Okay, keep that in mind. We'll use the Targum version here. It says, and I will clothe him with your tunic, and will gird him with your sash, and will put your authority in his hand, and he will become a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the house of Yehudah. And I will put the key of the house of David into his hand, and he will open, and there shall be none who can shut, and he will shut, and there will be none who can open. Right? How are we doing so far? All right. Revelations 3:7 says, which we're going to read again. It says, and to the Malach of the Kahal, or commonly called the church, or the call out ones. And Philadelphia writes, these things says he that is Chodesh, he that is true, he that has the key of David, he that opens and no man shuts, and shuts and no man opens. So what do you get out of this so far from what you read? Nothing? Okay, maybe this is a good home study. Okay, here she comes. He coming to you. He coming to your car.
I'm looking at it and like I
Me
said,
too.
I wanted to know what the keys was.
Mhm.
And then you put duties. So in us, we need to get rid of what we perceive as what a priest is, first of all. But I see that it's him who is how I'm going to put this. Everything, the keys that we have to know is about Yahusha. Everything that he said, we have to start looking at it, not our thought, but what he is actually saying in order to get to the kingdom.
Mhm.
We have to turn what we perceive, what the church has taught us, that we know that it's not true. It's hard. It might be hard for us at first, but if we doing his laws and commandments and the things that he taught us, taught the Talmudim, his Talmudim and disciples while he was on earth, it should not be as hard as we think it is. We just have to turn our mind from one state to another state.
Okay. I think you went over the 60-second window. All right. They ain't doing their job. I know what you're saying, but it needed to be heard. Maybe that's what it was. Huh? I got you. All right. All right. No, I'm just messing with you. All right. So, well, someone might, later on want a video, do that timer. See, you did us wrong, but if they're there, you good. All right. So anyway, a couple of things. One is we're going to talk about the keys, right? But the thing is, I want you to see here is when the keys to what is what we're asking, right? The keys of the house of David. David's house needs a key. So maybe there's something more behind why this key. right? So, it did fit. All right, so I said Mashiach has having the keys in Yeshayahu 22:22 and relates these keys to his followers being able to eventually to become a pillar in the temple of El. So we'll see how that works. Okay. We'll keep going. All right. So again, what is the key? So Luke says, therefore also said the wisdom of Eloah, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they shall slay and persecute, that the blood of all the prophets, which was shed from the foundations of the world, may be required of this generation. It says, from the blood of Habel, or Abel, unto the blood of Zechariah, and I'll tell you about all I have in here just a minute, which perished between the altar and the temple. Verily I say unto you, it shall be required of this generation. Now, so in 51, I gave you the scripture because a lot of people have a problem with what Zechariah they were referring to. They were thinking about Zechariah 1. They're saying, well, this won't, this will be false if you go by what happened in Zechariah's life compared to, what it's saying here from Habel to Zechariah. So if you look up this Zechariah, this is who they're referring to. You can see it in 2 Chronicles 24:20-21. So at any rate, woe unto you, lawyers. And the word there for lawyers means someone that is trained in the law. Okay, trained in the law. Okay, for you have taken away the key of knowledge. You entered not in yourselves, and them that were entering in you hindered. All right, so they got the keys, right? So these lawyers that are what they consider trained in Torah, they're hindering people from getting the keys of wisdom, of understanding, right? So clearly that must mean the key is in his word, right? Then, of course, Mashiach being the word helps us understand more about this key. But they didn't want to go enter, and now they're trying to hinder you from doing the same thing. Don't believe in that person there. Don't do this. Let me create my own laws and commandments. They start pushing you away from how to really get in with those keys that you need to get into his kingdom. Okay, is everyone good so far? All right. Matthew 15:3 says, but we answered and said unto them, why do you also transgress the commandments of Allah by your traditions? 9 says, but in vain they do worship me, teaching the doctrine of the commandments of men. So this is what's removing them from understanding the keys. Because number one, their traditions is taken over. Number two, they're now teaching doctrine, the commandments of men, and not the commandments of Yah. So everyone understand the key? All right, hallelujah. All right, so the keys to the kingdom continue. Revelation 3:7 says, which we already read before, where it talks about, and the Malach of the Kohel, or the called out ones, common called Church in Philadelphia, writes these things, saying, he that is Kodesh, he that is true, he that has the key of Daud or David or David, he that opens and no man shuts, and he that shuts and no man opens. All right, verse 10. Because you have kept the word of my patience, I also will keep you from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, to try them that dwell upon the earth. It's going to come upon where? All right, why does he need to try the whole world, though? Don't know? Okay. Sounds like a nice study. We'll keep going. I thought we all read this before together. All right. So, which shall come upon all the world and try them that dwell upon the earth. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which you have, that no man takes your crown. Him that overcomes will I make a pillar in the temple of my El. And he that shall go no more out, and I will write upon him the name of my El, and the name of the city of Mael, which is the new Jerusalem, which comes down out of Shamayim, or from heaven, from Mael, and I will write upon him my new name. Okay, so everyone sees here that he's the one. If you listen to his teachings, if you listen to his guide, notice his dealings was he wanted to teach about the law, statutes, and commandments, right? So if you listen to what he says, well, I heard, this brother say this, or Shaul said that, or whatever people say. The point is, if they're not pointing towards his instruction, the Father's instruction, then who are you going to listen to? Okay? Unless you're trying to make friends. If you're trying to make friends, then just be mindful where your friend is taking you. All right? 2 Baruch 10:18 says, you, priests, take the keys of the sanctuary and cast them to the highest heaven and give them to Yahuah and say, guard your house yourself, because, behold, we have been found to be false stewards. Okay? So, of course, this is dealing with the Levites. Hey, we're false stewards. Here, take your keys back. All right? So the keys are being taken away from the unworthy keepers in Israel and transferred elsewhere. All right, how are we doing so far? So we further got more understanding of keys. All right, great. All right, the rebuilding of the temple. So Yahushua is the beginning of the new temple and in replacement of the old. Okay, remember we're talking about not that physical temple yet. We're talking about us, right? So Matthew's 27:40, where in virtual repetition of 26:61, those mocking Yahushua saying, you who are going to destroy this temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the son of Elohim, come down from the stake, right? And of course, we already know about Mark 14:58 and 15:21, which you already read. All right, so what happens next after this? After they say all of these things. I know you guys just want me to hit the button, so I will. All right. 27:50 says, Yahushua, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the spirit, or his ruach. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain, or in two, from the top to the bottom. And the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. And the graves were open, and many bodies of the saints were arose and came out of the graves after his resurrection and went into the Chodesh city and appeared unto many. All right. Oh, okay. So not yet. So for right now, everyone understands what's happening here about we'll get more into the splitting of the veil. But what is 52 and 53 about? Is your first time reading that one? She's still outside. You going to get her? Oh, there she go. Okay. We found you.
I've read them. I read it over and over, and I said, how's this happening? Okay. I thought once you were dead, you dead. Mm-hmm. That's my philosophy.
Okay.
How did they came back to life? And I say, it's something missing in there.
Okay. Anyone want to answer it? Because I'm sure you guys did a good, thorough study on it. Man. We sure did. Man, it's rough. This room is rough. Okay, well, let's just take a little. Yeah. I mean, I'll give you some definitions, no problem. And then we'll see what happens. You want to share something? Oh. Okay, Xavier, come on, Aki. Talk to me in 60 seconds.
60 seconds. I don't have much of an address, but I do remember past studies where this was something along the lines of they were spiritually dead.
Okay, I can accept that.
That's all I got.
All right. All right. Okay, so we're going to go with some definitions and then see what happens. All right, so I want to talk about 5253. What happened here? So there's a bunch of definitions from different dictionaries about these words. The Greek word for, well, we start here. This pen can work now, right? Please don't go nowhere. All right. Okay, yeah, it works. Great. So here talking about the graves, right? So it says translated traditionally graves. Greek dictionary shows that this word is translated as mines, right? Mines or remember or memorial, if you look up some more of the Greek definition there. All right, and then the Greek word for the traditionally for the word bodies. Not too bad. I'll give it to him, but it shows that also it can be translated as, from its root, congregations. Okay, and so translated from the Greek word kinemi or kinemai, traditionally translated for the word for sleep. So where is right here. All right, and it's saying basically from the Thayers, if you go there, this page here shows that the word correctly translated could be called something else, which I'll go into in just a minute. And I figure I will give you a, what's the best way to say it? My version. Okay, my version of in English, okay, of these words that you saw in the dictionary. All right, so it says Matthew 27:51 says, "Behold, the veil of the Most High Chodesh place was torn into two, was torn top to bottom, and the earth quaked, and the rocks were split." Now, and the mind, or they remember, or the memorial were open, or their memory opened up. They remembered now, or was disclosed in many congregations, or many bodies, or many servants. Okay, because the word bodies or servants is the same in the Greek there, of the saints who were asleep or called arose. And coming out with remembrance, or remembered came out after his resurrection, and went into the Kodesh city and appeared to many. And when the centurion and those with him who were guarding Yahushua saw the earthquake and those things that were done, they feared greatly, saying, "Truly, this was the Son of Yahuah." Okay? All right. So for those that say, "Hey, I don't care, I'm still going to believe there's a resurrection there and it happened," no problem. For those that say, "Well, we have I believe there's a problem," then understand that, remember, he's been trying to open their minds to understand the scriptures the whole time. And then once all these things, specifically Isaiah, we're talking about in his death, something's supposed to happen, right? So now we start to see that in Isaiah, he's fulfilling this portion of Isaiah where they went to sleep, if you will, or went to dormant. Once all this took place, they start remembering what the scripture said. And now they're going to the set apart city, sharing what they saw, what's going on, what's happening. I pray everyone understands.
Has been fulfilled.
Right.
I've seen it. You remember when he said over here? Because our eyes were darkened, our mind was darkened, our ears were closed.
We were asleep.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So I hope that helps out. Yes, it did. Now we'll keep going. So Yahushua was mocked because he said that he would tear down the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. The veil of the temple was torn in two. In verse 51, it is a direct result of his death. In verse 50, the temple veil was a part of the temple, so that the tearing symbolically represented the destruction of the temple. Okay, so now we got to go into more about this veil. All right, so I want to give Josephus what he thought about the veil first. Okay, so Josephus describes the second temple in this manner: the front entrance to the sanctuary. He relates it to symbols or symbolic of heaven and earth. Okay, so he says, "Now before these doors, there was a veil of equal measure, a Babylonian tapestry, embroidered with the blue and fine linen and scarlet and purple. Wondrously designed, it had a mixture of materials that was not without an intended meaning, but was a likeness of the universe. For it seemed that fire was what was it looking like? Intimidated by the scarlet, and the earth by the linen, and the air by the blue of the sea, by the purple." And it says two of these materials being compared on the basis of their color. So how do you get purple? Red and, all right, great. On the basis of the origin, since the earth gives the former and the sea the latter, the tapestry portrayed the entire heavenly panoply except for the zodiac. All right. So the veil that was embroidered with the entire heavenly panoply was torn, or completeness of panoply means complete. Down, it would be a symbol of the beginning destruction, not only the temple, but the very cosmos. So if, for example, these tapestry had stuff dealing with the universe, he's letting you know that now it's like saying authority has been given to him in heaven and earth. He is now broke it. He owns everything, so to speak, at this point. Okay, is everyone with me so far? All right. So what happens at this time? We'll keep going. Luke 23:44 version of it says, and it was about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. Okay, and the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. Now, here you get more information about what happened also. Now, you didn't read earlier about the darkness and things like that, but now you see this here. So these were not signs of the final destruction of the cosmos, but signs that had begun in Yahushua's death, and that his resurrection was the beginning of a new creation. Okay? So another interesting thought was what Mashiach said to the criminal. So he says, and one of the malefactors, or the wicked ones, or the criminals, which were hanged, railed on him, saying, if you be Mashiach, save yourself and us. But the other answer rebuked him, saying, do not you fear, Loah, seeing you are in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, meaning we rightly need to be up here, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing amiss. And he said unto Yahushua, Adonai, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Yahushua said unto him, verily I say unto you, today, or this, if you read it in the Greek there, you shall be with me in paradise. Now, Yahushua states in 43 that he and the believing criminal will be together in paradise, which is the Garden of Eden. Why is this linking back to the garden? Remember I said it all comes back together to this garden. Suggests further that Yahushua's death was in fact a pathway leading to a new creational Eden. This was the beginning of fulfilling the intentions of the garden sanctuary. His subsequent resurrection as a new creature was the formal rebuilding of the temple. So we see now this is what Adam and Israel was supposed to do. So now he's giving you the pattern. He's showing you how to do it. We're supposed to carry on that stake, if you will, and start to do the same thing. Okay, is everyone with me so far? All right. Okay, everyone knows the Testament of Levi. And you might not have heard about the lives of the prophets. So I add that because that's between the 1st and 3rd century as well. All right, so Levite says, see, I am free. Technically stating this is what Levi said. Okay, I am free from responsibilities for your impiety or from transgression which you may commit until the consummation of the ages, in leading Yisrael or Yashar Israel astray, and in fermenting in its great evils against Yahuah. And you shall act lawlessly in Israel, with the result that Jerusalem or Jerusalem cannot bear the presence of your wickedness. But the curtain of the temple will be torn, so that it will no longer conceal your shameful behavior. You shall be scattered as captives among the nations, where you will be a disgrace and a curse. For the house which Yahuah shall choose shall be called Jerusalem. Wait a minute, the house is going to be bigger than the first house? Okay, it's going to call Jerusalem. And it says, as the book of Hanuk, the righteous maintains. Now, the lives of the prophet says this. He gave a pertinent to those in Yehuda that they would see a light in the temple and so perceive the chabod or esteem of the temple. And concerning the end of the temple, he predicted by a Western nation it will happen. At that time, he said, the curtain of the dabir, which is the inner curtain, will be torn into small pieces, and the capitals of 2 pillars will be taken away, and no one will know where they are, and they will be carried away by Melachims into the wilderness, where the tent of witness was set up in the beginning. So I'll read the next part. It says, and by means of them, Yahuah will be recognized at the end, for they will illuminate those who are being pursued by the serpent in darkness and from the beginning. So in 12, notice that they talk about, we got to send the tearing of the veil, but also this carrying away in the wilderness is supposed to take place, right? And it's basically saying that there's going to be where the tent of witness was. So according to this writing is we're going to go back to the very thing where he opened this up, right? Then 13 says, at the latter portion of it, it says, he will illuminate those who are beginning to pursue by the serpent in darkness as from the beginning. What do you get out of this one here? Verse 13. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's you're saying that we're going back to the garden where the serpent tried to deceive us.
Okay. You got the serpent's deception back in the garden. Mm-hmm. Okay, and he's going to pursue, right? So look at this here. Revelation 12:9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Shaitan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his Melachims were cast out with him. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keeps the commandments of Eloah and the testimony or the witness of Yahushua the Mashiach. You know, as you keep reading about it, starts about even they're going back into the wilderness, meaning the woman, because he's trying to come after them. All right, great. The curtain torn representing the Kabod Steam coming out to his people. Okay, so Testament of Benjamin says, he shall enter the first temple, and there Adonai will be abused and will be raised up on wood. And the temple curtain shall be torn, and the spirit of Elohim will move on all nations as a fire is poured out. And he shall ascend from Hades and shall pass on from earth to heaven. I understood how humble he will be on the earth and how splendid in heaven. Okay, so even if this is, you know, the dating of this now, the ones that they have now is later, they say that this here technically was prophesied to, that's just whoever wrote this, we'll say Benjamin, for an example, or his descendants, not specifically Benjamin, but let's say his descendants, and that they understood that this was to happen. All right. All right. The Sebulun says, the Oracle of Sebulun says, when the external sovereign came down to earth, he will come to Hades announcing hope for all. The Chodesh ones, or the Chodesh Echad, the set apart ones, the end of age and last day. And he will complete the fate of death when he has slept the third day. And then, returning from the dead, he will come to light, first of the resurrection, showing a beginning to the elect, having washed off their former vice with the waters of an immortal spring, so that, born from above, they may no longer serve the lawless customs of the world. All right, so we'll keep going. Almost done. All right, so Mark account of this event. So I want you just to see something really fast, where it says Mark 15:23 says, and they gave him to drink wine mingled with myrrh, but he received it not. And when they had crucified him, they parted his garments, casting lots upon them, that they were every man should take. And it was the third hour, and they crucified him. And the superscription on his accusation was written over the king of the Yahudims, and with him they crucified 2 thieves, the one on his right hand, the other on his left. And then 36 says, and one ran and filled a sponge full of vinegar and put it on a reed and gave him to drink, saying, let us see whether Eliyahu will come to take him down. And Yahushua cried with a loud voice and gave up his spirit. And the veil of the temple was rent in twain or in two from the top to the bottom. So here's another account here we see now talking about giving them something to drink. One talks about the wine. One talks about the vinegar. So in this chiasm, I was going to go over this, but in this chiasm, Mark interprets the unveiling of Yahushua, stripping him to be the unveiling of the temple. So meaning that his garments were stripped, so was the temple. Both of them were ripped, torn into two, paralleling this temple that he's going to raise in the 3D. One's being torn down, one is being built. Okay? So to the unveiling of the temple. The crucifixion would be the destruction, not only Mashiach's body as a temple, but of the old temple itself and the release of the Kodesh presence from the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Meaning that now that presence that was just housed in the temple is now going out to his people. Okay? So I put note because it'll be something that you guys just want to study on your own if you choose to. I put note one on the right and one on the left. You might want to look into that. Look into the time. What he drank was perceived that he drank, and his garments. I told you a little bit about his garments, but all those things have some meaning behind it. Okay? All right, the building of the temple through Mashiach. All right, so Zechariah 6:12 says, and speak unto him, saying, thus speaks Yahuah, saying, behold, the man whose name is the Samach, or the branch, he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of Yahuah. Even he shall build the temple of Yahuah, and he shall bear the esteem, the chabod, and shall sit and rule upon his throne, and he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the council of peace shall be between them both, Yahuah Sibaoth. Targum says, and you shall say to him, thus has spoken, saying, behold, man, Mashiach is his name, will be revealed, and he shall be magnified and shall build the temple of Yahuah. And he shall build the temple of Yahuah and shall bear splendor and shall sit and rule upon his throne. And there shall be a high priest beside his throne, and the council of peace shall be between the two of them. All right. So Yahushua is building the new temple through his resurrection, broadly speaking, a fulfillment of Zechariah 6:12-13. And the Targums of Zechariah, who the Messianic branch is prophesied as to build the temple and to rule in his esteem, as you see in Daniel and some other places like that. Okay. And then just a reminder of what we read earlier, Isaiah 53:5 and verse 10, is that he will rebuild the temple that was defiled by our sins, handed over by our iniquities, and by his teaching, peace will increase upon us. And when we follow his word, our sins will be forgiven us. But from before, Yahuah was pleased to refine and to purify the remnant of his people so that he could cleanse their life from sins. They will see the kingdom of their Mashiach. All right. So John's portion here, and I think that one more after, or this might be the last slide. So John 1:14 says, and the word was made flesh and dwelt among us. All right. So, and we behold his abode esteem. The esteem has the only begotten of the Father, full of favor and truth. All right. So other translation would say, and tabernacled among us. All right. The presence of Yahuah was formerly contained in the Kodesh HaKadoshim of the tabernacle and the temple, but has now burst forth into the world in the form of Yahushua, meaning we now take on this tabernacle, right? So now it's supposed to be inside of us. We're supposed to be operating like that stationary temple, so to speak, or tabernacle. Now we become this mobile one to try to get this throughout all the earth, right? Yahushua says in 51, and he said to him, truly, truly, I say unto you, you will see heaven open and the Malachim of Eluah ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Now, is that something new, original? All right, so this is the allusion in Genesis 20:12. He said he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to Shamayim, or heaven. Behold, the Malachim of Elohim was ascending and descending on it. So why is he using this? So where Elohim appeared to Yaakov and Jacob at Bethel, house of El, and in response, Yaakov or Jacob established a small sanctuary. There, Yaakov and Jacob saw steps ascending to heaven and the Malachim going up and down on them. The point of that vision was that this was a temporary sanctuary where there was a link between heaven and earth. This little temple at Bethel was a precursor of the larger temple to be built in Jerusalem, which became the permanent place in Israel or Israel, and the ancient world where Elohim's presence in heaven was linked to the earth. That Yahushua identifies himself as the Son of Man, who is the stairway between heaven and earth, appears to be a way of indicating that he is finally doing what Adam and Israel should have done. He is building a permanent temple that has begun to link heaven to earth. Right? All right. Any questions?